Support for Carolina Business Review provided by Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
Entrepreneurs aren't always small businesses. They're not always 20-somethings working on a laptop from a coffee shop. They don't always start in a garage. They're not always successful. Their business may not always be sexy or exciting. What they are very important to the development of ideas and the forward progression of business and competitiveness for any community or culture. Welcome back to the most widely watched program on Carolina business and public policy. I'm Chris William, and entrepreneur and innovation are generally interchangeable concepts and terms, and therein lies the corpus of the value of the entrepreneurial spirit and what it achieves. On this special two-part CBR, we will discuss these issues against the backdrop of our current state of affairs with 6 entrepreneurs from across the Carolinas, and we will meet them in just a moment.
Major funding also by Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. The Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. This edition of Carolina Business Review was recorded September 13th, 2013. On this week's program, Marty Bauer, Rob Cummings, Jenny Fulton, Peter Gasca, Fred Sexton, and Wendell Roth. And now, here's Chris William.
Hello, welcome to our program, and welcome, gang. Good to have you
Thank
here.
you. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for driving, because I know a lot of you came in from many distant places. And Wendell, I'm going to start with you. You know, when you think about entrepreneur and you think about everything around a small business or that, that cutting edge kind of excitement, and I'm sure that's probably worn off to some degree on you now. But I want to ask each one of you to do what we call, you've heard it before, 30-second elevator speech, and try to keep it within 30 seconds. Tell me about Waterra and do it in 30 seconds.
Sure. We are a company that provides sustainable, healthy drink options for people that eliminates the plastic bottle completely from the distribution channel. If you've seen a lot of primarily students but younger folks carrying around reusable water bottles today, they have very limited places where they can fill those up. So we have a device that people can put it in, press a button and get purified water into their reusable container, or they can press another button and get a 0-calorie, 0-sugar, 100% vitamin C drink, or a tea, or a flavor drink. They can mix and match flavors, make it sweeter or less sweet, all into their reusable container. So we've eliminated the bottle and we've given them something healthy to drink.
Okay, a good way. Fred, you're up next. What about Work Snaps? Why is it so cool?
With Mouse and Man.
Right, Mouse and Man. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Yeah, no, that's interesting. That's a client of mine, but you had me going there for a second there. Simply we help people and businesses get found online. So I won't even take up 30 seconds, but that's it.
That's good. Shorter's good. Marty, you're up.
So RidePost is a safe and social ride-sharing network that's designed to dramatically reduce the cost of travel and increase access to transportation. We're seeing a real generational shift in priorities and thoughts in how people are looking at transportation and the cost of car ownership. And what we're really focusing is on the long-distance transportation market, where there's over 2 billion long-distance road trips every year that have, on average, 3 empty seats in every car. So we enable people to fill those empty seats. And ultimately, our goal and our vision is to develop and build the 4th element of public transportation, where we complement the bus, the plane, and the train transportation network, with RidePost becoming that 4th option.
Okay, good wrap up. Pete, you're up.
Sure. Well, I am the CEO of Wild Creations. We are a Myrtle Beach based product development company. We focus solely on products that are geared toward children or even actually invented by children. My business partner and I founded the business about 7 years ago. We were former business consultants, decided to get to satisfy our entrepreneurial bug. And we found this really cool product, and at the time he had 2 kids and I had 2 kids, and the one thing we were absolutely dedicated to was we didn't want our kids growing up completely engulfed in Game Boys, handheld gaming systems, and stuck on the computer. We wanted them to have games that they would be tactile and get them to socialize with each other and get them away from the TV. So all of our products, our base product is a desktop ecosystem aquarium that teaches kids about responsibility, teaches them about ecosystem and their place in the ecosystem, and all the products that we've got coming down the pipes are meant to kind of have that educational edge.
Miss Jenny?
Hi. Well, basically, we started Miss Jenny's because we lost our job, and we didn't have a choice. And so what we have are all natural pickles with no junk in our jar, with 4 unique flavors, and that's who we are. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Rob, you're up.
Thanks, Chris. Rob Cummings, I'm the founder of DealCloud. We are a software provider here in Charlotte that provides technology solutions to investment banking and private equity firms. So we are in Charlotte, the financial services hub, or one of the hubs. The best way to think about our product is to compare it to a real estate agent. So a real estate agent markets a number of homes, and then they look for buyers to come into the MLS, in their case, to evaluate certain properties. Well, it's the same way with buying and selling businesses. You have an agent that is looking to sell a medium-sized business, and they can invite buyers into the process to take a look at those businesses, eventually getting to the point where there's interest, going through the entire due diligence process. That is a paper-based process today that we've completely automated online.
You know, you all go through what you do, and clearly you're excited about this. And when you hear a good idea, like you all have, of course, when it kind of flows over you and you hear the idea, you go, well, of course, that's common sense. Of course someone would do that now. But when, and this is open to any one of you, when was the aha moment? When did it strike you? Anyone?
I would say when a total stranger looked at me and said, "Can I buy that jar of pickles?" You know, not my friends, not my family, but a total stranger said, "I gotta have that." And I went, okay, we can do this. Because pickles are our passion, but it, you know, might not be everybody else's passion, but a total stranger's going, I gotta have that jar of pickles.
So Jenny, you didn't have it in your head, you know, I'm gonna start a business, I'm gonna jar pickles and I'm gonna go against some of these pickle producers.
No, lost my job and actually got laid off first. And, you know, I met Susan Ivey, who was the president of RJ Reynolds at the time. And we had lunch years ago and she said, Jenny, if you ever get the opportunity to start your own company, don't miss it. And she said, and if you'll follow your passion, then you'll end up making money at it.
Yeah, some of you guys are nodding your heads here. Yes,
That's
no.
great advice. Yeah, it's perfect advice. You know, for us, you know, I'm not. Again, we founded our company was founded off of this awesome little desktop ecosystem with 2 little African dwarf frogs. I'm not a marine biologist. I'm not smart enough to invent something like that. So my business partner and I, you know, we were looking at other businesses to buy. And we looked at everything from roofing companies to pest control companies. We looked at a dead body removal company that had great cash flow, but we just couldn't find it in ourselves. And what it was we found this company who was owned by a small mom and pop shop when they were making these little ecosystem habitats. And I saw this thing, and it was the atypical business case study. I mean, awesome product. Nobody's doing it in the country. Immense distribution issues, right? So it's like, this is exactly what we do, and it's an awesome product. And my business partner had kids, and he's like, this is exactly what kids want. And it was at that point we went, this is it. And I remember it wasn't even a question. I called him up after my meeting and I went, this is the company we want to buy and we want to get into.
You know, isn't that interesting? Now, you know, this is not a Baptist church. The back row needs to speak up.
I was going to say, mine was a true aha moment. I was coming back. We had just left an amusement park in Pennsylvania, driving back to Greensboro, my wife and I was filling up the car with gas, because we only stop when the car needs gas. And we had 2 kids in the back, and I said, you want something to drink? And she said, yes. So I walked in to get something to drink, and I literally saw a wall of refrigerators. And there was three refrigerators with different brands of plain water. Think about that for a second. Different brands of plain water. Then there were sports drinks and energy drinks and vitamin drinks and flavored drinks. And I looked at this and said, my gosh, how did we get here? Where does all this stuff come from? Where does it go to? So that's how it started from an environmentalist. I wasn't a nutritionist. I wasn't an environmentalist by any stretch of the imagination. So I got back in the car and, 5 hours before the gas tank empties is a long time. You start reading the stuff you're drinking. She's like, my wife Cindy said, do you know what's in this stuff? No, she said, this has 250 calories. I'm like, but it's a vitamin drink. It should be good for us. And so that's how it started. And as I peeled back the onion, it started to stink worse and worse when we throw away, in this country alone, we throw away about 4 million plastic drink containers every hour. Every hour we throw that away.
Let's talk about this aha moment for just a second, Marty. How do you know that, and this is not meant to be a flippant comment, but how do you know an aha moment's not caffeine induced? How do you know that there's really something there, and when you start to cook on it, okay, maybe this is something?
I think the key point in defining what that aha moment is understanding, will somebody else have interest in this? Will somebody else buy it, or will somebody else pay for it, or will somebody else use it? If you walk into a gas station and all you see is three refrigerators full of flavor, plain water of different brands, you're saying, okay, people are buying it, there's a need there. You have to find a need, and I think that's what people really can recognize of. Everybody has ideas. All of us, we were just talking before, all of us are filled with new ideas, but it's about the opportunity for somebody else to pay for that idea, or you have to be, I guess the best thing to do is as quickly as you can, identify the pain point and determine if you can really solve a pain for somebody else.
Interesting. Fred, of Mouse and Man, how do you take, when does kind of the good part of the aha moment wear off and you start to realize that, this is a great idea and it's going to be much more than lightning in a bottle, that there has to be a process around this? And how do you kind of get that going in your head?
Well, I think a lot about just aha moments in general and trying to be in situations where they would serendipitously happen, and like surround myself with people that are smarter than me, that you can have these kinds of honest conversations. As far as like fulfilling on it, I would say, personally for me, I've tried all different kinds of things, and we talked earlier before the show started about failing, and I've failed a lot, and I've learned a lot about failing because of that. I think I'm stronger because of that. For me, just seeing some momentum happen and people getting excited about things are some of the signs. I don't know what the stats are, but I know there's X number of businesses that fail after a year or 6 months or however long like that. So I think just beating those odds and staying alive and thriving. And I think there's probably some sort of metric, but I think it's something more that's felt, that it's going to be successful and you're part of something that's bigger than you are.
So how do you find the balance between discouragement and practicality? And how do you get people around you to say, that's a good idea, Rob or Jenny or anyone? How do you make sure that that's a good idea, but don't forget that? And how do you not be discouraged?
Well, you do get discouraged. You're an entrepreneur.
Well, fatally discouraged. How do you make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, what you do is, again, like what Fred said, is you surround yourself with the right people, because you're going to have those moments, no matter what. You're going to have that unexpected bill or that free fill that, hey, that was $25,000. I had no idea that I was getting ready to pay, So you get really discouraged on those days. But then, guess what? On the flip side of that, I'm standing on the Great Wall of China, all because of Pickles. Now think about that. Really.
That's literally you were standing
I was literally, because we export to China. Cool. So I had the most amazing feeling going, I'm from North Carolina and I'm on the Great Wall because of Pickles. Now that's pretty exciting. So you have the bad and you have the good.
You know what I would add is
that's a true story.
You know what I add is not everybody's going to invent the next Facebook. Not everybody's going to invent the next rideshare, which is a really difficult and probably complex business to handle. What I would tell entrepreneurs is, don't be discouraged if your passion suddenly, or your aha moment is pickles. I would imagine pickles is a tough industry to be in. Toys, an incredibly difficult industry to be in. If you're an entrepreneur and you have that entrepreneur mindset and that's your passion, you'll figure out a way to make it work. You can't invent the next Facebook all the time, but maybe you can invent the next better products that you're passionate about.
Well, and Rob, I want to bring you into this because you started your business, DealCloud, in Charlotte, that is outside of New York, is the center of financial still, even though Wells and B of A have diffused to some degree. I mean, this can be pretty intimidating, and you're trying to do what they're trying to do, kind of, sort of. So how do you not believe some of the things that people are telling you, like, Rob, don't waste your time. This has been covered. It's not going to work. It's it's too expensive. How do you do that? How do you make sure you climb up over the top of that discouragement?
Well, a couple of thoughts. The highs are high and the lows are really low, but you got to celebrate the highs. Last year we won a couple of business competitions. Right after we won those business competitions, we went back to the office and started going at it. And you need to go out and celebrate those. And I think that's what we've learned this year is when you do have those high moments, celebrate those high moments and be happy for your accomplishments.
Okay, let's take the high moments and the low moments and let's throw them out. It's like the extremes on statistical evidence. Let's throw them out. And let's talk about all of the information, the 90% of the information and the work that is done between the curve or in the curve. So what does that look like? Forget about the aha moment. Is innovation, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is innovation, is it a process? Is it about going through the things you need to do? And can it be mundane? Is it mundane? Is it a process? Is it a discipline? Anyone?
It's a culture.
It's a culture.
I think it's got to be a culture inside your organization. I mean, you have to allow your organization to be innovative and creative, but you have to encourage it also. I mean, if the first couple of years that we were in business, we spent a lot of time in our trucks, driving product all across the country, meeting, as they say, we were too busy in the business to work on the business. And when we finally figured that out, when we were finally tired of driving and not getting anywhere, we came back to the office and sat down and goes, we need to create an atmosphere of innovation and creativity, which meant just, it's something as simple and as having a room with bean bags and a whiteboard and a bunch of Post-it notes. And that was our goal, was once a week we were going to sit in there for a couple hours, turn our phones off, and innovate and think. But that became ingrained with the rest of the organization. People saw that, we brought them into that circle, and it just started happening.
Yeah, somebody else was going to say something. Did I hear? No.
It can be a process. I mean, to his point, it's a culture, it's a process, but it's an understanding as well, especially when you're starting from nothing. When you're starting, all of us have started a company from nothing. How do you get to the point where you have a culture? That's a big buzzword. Right. It really exudes from every person in that organization. One of the things that we do as a team is we have a distributed workforce as well. Half of our team is in Greenville, South Carolina, and the other half is in Washington, D.C. And it's really it can be really difficult to make sure that everybody's on the same page, but you have to work towards that. I think to build a culture really starts with the people. You really have to get the right people who want to wake up every morning without an alarm clock and go do what they're about to do for 10 or 12 hours. That's really where I think culture starts, innovation starts, and you can't get lost in the weeds. It's very, very easy. That's very easy Monday through Friday to get lost in the weeds of answering those emails, making sure you pay those bills, making sure you track records. But you have to set some sort of process, I believe, and control the chaos, if you will, of having some sort of thing you always look back on.
Okay, so Marty, you control the chaos.
Sure.
Wendell, Fred, you control the chaos, but isn't that the beauty of what started you? This whole idea that it's the Wild West, man. It can go in any direction. This is great. How do we bottle this? And that's what you're trying to do. So, how do you foster the culture? But how do you control the culture?
Yeah, so that we're talking about, I guess, culture internal to the company.
Right.
And I was talking earlier about surrounding yourself with people smarter than you are. So a comment real quickly about that is I saw a presentation where I think it was a guy from UNC Chapel Hill who did kind of like a data mashup on successfully exited companies that had been invested for and how people are connected, investors and startup communities and things like that. And they showed like San Francisco and Silicon Valley, it was like a
huge
like a
dot,
black
the
dot.
big dot.
Yeah, and like Boston was
big.
like that. And they showed, and maybe it's just for me, but I'm more of a visual person. They showed like Raleigh and Charlotte and other areas in the Carolinas, and there were connections, but not nearly as connected as other cities were. So that really took me back, and I always try to talk with many business owners and people that I look up to as possible. And that's something I feel like I carry back into my company just by being around these people and learning from them. Maybe I can get away with that because I'm younger than most business owners, and I can play that card, but I'll play to my advantage.
You know, and that card is played a lot, Fred. I mean, when we think about entrepreneurs and think about some of the cool startup stuff that you all are doing, you all are younger, but is that necessarily, are you smiling because that's a good thing, Jenny?
Well, I'm glad you called me young, so thank you.
Young girl, second, it's a young girl.
Yeah,
I think Rebecca did a good job
Sorry.
this morning on the makeup. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You forgot what you were going to say.
No, what I was just going to say is, you know, I'm listening, and everybody's exactly right. Innovation, we do it every day, but because we're entrepreneurs, we do this 24/7. And a lot of people, like Marty was saying, you know, it's not an 8 to 5.
Yeah.
And when you own your own company, it's in your blood. It's a lifestyle. You know, I do it 24/7. Eat, breathe, sleep, pickles.
Yeah.
That's what we do. But we don't know any other way.
And I think you're always thinking, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
I think you're thinking of the next idea, next idea, next idea, and then you've got to put some discipline around that and say, okay, I don't have unlimited cash. I don't have unlimited funds. And the next idea is a great idea. I mean, everybody that sees what we do, they're like, hey, when are you going to put this thing in the homes? And I'm like, well, to do that, that's going to probably take me this. I want to do it. I have ideas on how to do it. But my gosh, the cost and the time and the effort to get there is pretty dramatic.
So, Wendell, how do you stay focused on that? How do you not start spinning out to go, well, wait a minute, if I did this, then we could we could bolt on a side business that would be complementary. So how do you stay single-minded and focus on Watera?
I guess it's like we're saving for retirement. I mean, you're always saving for retirement, but you got to deal with the day-to-day stuff that you got to deal with, and you want to have a little fun with your family, so you put a little money over here to do that. But it's the same thing with innovation. I mean, you've got all these great ideas, and down the road we want to be here, and that's our vision, that's our goal, and these are the steps we have to take to get to that goal. But you have to take those steps, and while you're taking those steps to go here, you still got to be taking care of the business, because if you don't take care of the business, this becomes a dream, not a vision.
Yeah, and you're all shaking your heads on that.
A lesson that I learned early on was the concept of minimal viable product.
What does that mean?
It means go out the door with something that works, that your customers will buy, but don't build the Battlestar Galactica. And we did a little bit of that with our first release. And you know what? We're ripping some of those features out just to make it simpler. You got to stay disciplined with that minimal viable product.
You know, the whole process of innovating should always be innovating itself. I mean, we've gone through several iterations of how we, I don't know how you control it. We still don't control it. In fact,
isn't that the scary part, though, Pete?
Well, it's the fun part. It's the exciting part. Because you know what? I mean, if you try to control it, I mean, I don't go back to your original question was like, how do you tap it? How do you control? I say you don't control it. You let it go. You just get really good at picking through the weeds. In fact, recently, I had this conversation with a gentleman in my office. He came in with this idea, and I said no. And you could tell in his face that he was prepared for me to say no. And he just said, well, hold out. Just don't say no yet. Just hear me out, or let it sit in and don't talk about it overnight. And I realized I was like, I had become this no guy. I said no to everything because I just said we can't do it. And so we stopped saying no in our office. That was an innovation to our innovation process. So
that was a tagline, stop saying no?
We don't say no to anything. Now, it doesn't mean we say yes to everything. It says we don't say no to everything. And I'm not joking. Within that 30-minute, 45-minute conversation, I said, okay, I'll hear you out. I don't like your idea. I take that back. I just don't love your idea. So we can't do it. And guess what? We started talking about it. It progressed. And then suddenly, by the end of 45 minutes, we had a viable, really working idea that I was like, this is great. And so, so that's our attitude right now in the office is we don't say no to anything right away. Again, it doesn't mean we say yes to everything. It just means that we've got an idea, let's listen to it, let's let it soak in, or maybe let's bounce it off the idea. I think being a good entrepreneur is not coming up with the best idea, it's knowing how to weed through all your bad ideas.
Yeah, we got about 30 seconds. Did you just have something, Marty, that you were going to add? You sound like you were going to jump in on something.
No, I mean, I think that's exactly what you have to do is you have to define you have to outline what you're going to do. And one of the ways that we did that at our company is every Monday we have 3 things that we look at. Number 1 is what's one thing that's working really well and how do we become the best in the world at doing that? Yeah. Number 2 is what's one thing that we can either fix or kill? And then number 3 is what's one thing that's not even on our radar that we can look at in the future.
Great. Okay, that will be the last word. Next week we're going to continue this dialogue, part 2. We haven't talked about funding. We haven't talked about trying to get this chaotic idea culture and sell it to a banker or get a lender. We haven't talked about the impact of healthcare reform, among many things. Next week, part 2 with our entrepreneurs should be Should be very interesting, and we hope you will be part of it. If you have any comments or you'd like to watch us online, you can. CarolinaBusinessReview.com. We hope your weekend's good, your business is good. Until then, I'm Chris William. Good night and goodbye.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care, when and where you need it. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.com.